I have to speak once again about the Camino de Santiago, the journey that I took on myself as partly a celebration of my menopause and now celebration of my 58th year, as well as a peace pilgrimage of my own and really a kind of searching journey. I've gotten so many questions about the Camino and so much encouragement along the way as I posted in social media, specifically on Instagram, a daily summary, and I'll share those with you at the end of this podcast. I wanted to share a little bit more about the Camino and the journey and the transformation, because an experience like this is something that I'd not ever fully appreciated or experienced in my life before. And it's certainly not something I can write on a prescription pad, but it was one of the most, it has been one of the most healing experiences I've had myself. And I have had, so many experiences. I've traveled the world. I've worked with indigenous healers. I've experienced plant medicine, ayahuasca, different experiences in my life, meditation, long periods of fasting, silent retreats, staying at a monastery, and this walk, daily walking. So let me explain a little bit about what the Camino, when we talk about the Camino de Santiago, Camino in general is a walk. And the Camino de Santiago specifically is a walk towards wherever you begin your journey. It's a walk towards where you end your journey at the Compostela de Santiago in Spain, at the cathedral in this area of Spain, where the bones of Saint James are reported to have been buried. And it was reported that shepherds saw this stars led them to this field, so hence Compostela, area of stars, that led them to the bones of Saint James, Santiago, for the Spanish name for Saint James, one of the original apostles of Jesus. And so this was, the journey of St. James Bones that came through reportedly on boat through landing in port in an area in a city in Spain called Padron, and then transported to and buried in this area. Many centuries later, found by these shepherds as guided by this constellation of stars. So hence the Compostela de Santiago. And it's reported that when you leave your front door and head in that direction, you've begun your Camino. So there are many journeys, and some of the most famous are the French journey, where you start in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and it's approximately, I think, 500 to 700 kilometers from that journey. Now, if you are already watching me on YouTube, if you're listening to me, I do encourage you to hop over to YouTube at some time and definitely subscribe to my channel to see the podcast. But I will show you what I am showing my viewers is a map of the Portuguese Compostela. So this map just shows Portuguese route to the Compostela de Santiago, the cathedral here at the top, the cathedral in Spain. And there are many routes, like starting from Lisbon, can take 4 weeks walking to get to Santiago, and other areas in the south, areas of Spain, even as far south as Sevilla in Spain, and walking towards Santiago to Compostela. There's an English route, there's primitive routes, there are so many routes. And my route was this route on coastal Spain. So the coastal area, and I took 7 days walking, 150 kilometers, approximately 100 miles, with some side routes, and walked this section just along the coast from just north of the coast of on the coast of Portugal and Spanish border. I started in Oya, Spain, and I walked to Santiago. And the different towns that I stopped at along the way, Bayona and Vigo and Redondola, Pontevedra, Caldas de Reis, which is the hot water of the kings, and well needed soaking my feet during that part of the journey, into Padron, and then the final stretch to the cathedral at the end of 7 days walking. And then along the way, you have what's called a passport, essentially, and you're given this credencial del peregrino, peregrino meaning pilgrim. So the credential of the pilgrim, and you are, where you start, it is stamped and you sign it and designate you are starting this pilgrimage. You can do this, you don't have to, you all, if you take on this challenge someday, and you should stamp every day, at least 2 stamps. And along the way at churches or sometimes cafes, your hotel will have a specific stamp, and they're all very different, but they tell you, they mark your journey along the way, and you date it for the day that you've passed that, and you get many stamps along the journey till you get the final official stamp at the office of the pilgrims at the Cathedral of Santiago. And when you start off the journey, you start with this passport size thing, and they give you a plastic cover for it, because if you're carrying it with you, you're pretty much guaranteed to get wet on your walk, and I certainly did. And I was thinking, how can I express to you some of the magic that happens on the Camino, really what it meant? For me, it was a calling, and I was inspired to do it. I've thought about it over the years, but just in this summer, in the middle of June 15th, I decided. July 4th, I was walking. Now, if you are thinking of doing Camino de Santiago, 100 kilometers or more, I do encourage you to start preparing for the walk at the first inclination of doing so, hopefully many months before you start walking, because your feet will appreciate the preparation for sure. So for me, though, it just, June 15th, that everything opened, let's say the stars aligned, and there was no way I was not going to be doing this Camino. Everything just kind of fell into place. Other plans I had for my Portuguese leg of my summer adventures that I've been on just fell aside, and the Camino took precedence, and I decided to do it. And it, for me, was this calling, and it was a challenge, and I felt inspired. And I also had to, if you heard my last podcast when I'm talking about setting smart goals and, setting a challenge for yourself, I had my own self-doubt. Could I do this with such a little preparation? Am I too old now to actually take on a challenge like this? And I think what I want to say is that we are our worst critics and self-limiters in so many ways. So from this experience, and also seeing other people in their 60s, in their 70s, white hair, hand in hand, canes, walking with walking sticks, and just going at their own pace, all sizes, all shapes, all ages, and just putting one step in front of the other, taking one next right step at a time. That inspired me to know, to not put limits on myself, to actually challenge myself in bigger and stronger ways. When people do the Camino, maybe you've seen the movie The Way, which with Martin Sheen, and it's a story of him following his son to the Camino in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and then walking the Camino himself and his journey along the way. Also, so it's called The Way. And then there is the book by one of my favorite authors, Paulo Coelho, a Brazilian author, who wrote The Pilgrimage. And that's an excellent book to read as well. If you're thinking about the Camino, you want some more information, that's um, a nice storyline. And then there is also the book God's Hotel, which I started before I went on the Camino and I finished when I came back. And it's a beautiful, really a beautiful story, especially as a physician, to read that about God's Hotel being the original hospitals were from monasteries and were, care places for the sick and the convalescent to have place and space to recover and heal. So God's Hotel is another great book to put on your reading list. So those are a few that I found. And along the way, people will say, well, there's magic on the Camino, or I went just for the physical experience for the hike, but I came back with so much more. And so when I started out, I really had no expectations. What would this mean to me? What would this, how would this change my life? Or sometimes then God puts me in places to help someone else. So for myself, I said, I just wanted to experience the walk, to prove to myself that I could do it, to do this as a celebration, 7 days by myself, as a celebration of this stage of my life, and also as a peace pilgrimage with each step I take and the prayers that I make in every church I go to, lighting a candle for peace in Palestine and Israel, and to um, honor human lives and experiences and our individuality. And so that was a big part of everything that I was juggling spiritually and emotionally at the same time. And I wouldn't say I was looking for magic, but along the journey, so starting out, it's very exciting because you're in new territory and you're seeing new sights and you're looking for the markers and following the path and the directions. You look for these yellow arrows that are telling you which way to go or to turn to stay en route. And it's exciting and exhausting at the same time. The first day I hiked over 17 miles, and then just being in a new town. And for me, I stayed in hotels, 1-star hotels, all very clean. And I had my day pack that I carried daily. I had luggage transfer because I'd come from speaking in London at a conference and I was going to India. So I had a carry-on, but I had that transported um, along the way by companies will organize that for you. And some people ask, well, what companies? There is Portuguese Green Walks, which has the best reputation among pilgrims, peregrinos. Portuguese Green Walks has, again, a great reputation. They really do prepare the pilgrim for the journey and the path. And I heard great things about them. I used Santiago Ways, another company that arranged, again, clean hotels and the luggage transport. And yeah, so it made it simple for me. So as I walked through the towns, it really, on day 5, I could tell I was shouldering a lot, body's exhausted and feeling some challenges, but still in that place looking for the gifts along the trail, like the magic in the trail, the stories, the people, the encounter, opening myself up to having conversations with strangers as we walked. And the beauty of that, the beauty of listening to other people's stories, to other people's motivation for beginning the Camino, or maybe repeating the Camino, or doing it with their family. And I love that part. And on day 7, really, that day I cried. It was raining all day. I started out while it was still dark in the morning, started out walking to head to the cathedral to make the 12 o'clock pilgrims mass. So that was my goal. So I had a really steady pace and good hike of 17 miles that day. And it was raining from the time I stepped out in the morning. So it was raining the entire time. And it just, I know for myself, it was almost like a washing. I felt so much sadness overwhelm me, but yet peace at the same time. And during the seventh day, as I'm walking through the rain, for me, I thought of all the people that I've had in my life that I'm so grateful for and that are also no longer with me. You know, my parents, both my mother and my father, my son, my grandparents I never knew because they passed before I was born, my aunts and uncles, all my family in Palestine, and my extended cousins, and my brothers, and just the list kept going on and on and on. Um, and I just thought of people and I blessed them as I walked and thought of good memories. And during that time, it was just a lot of tears. And so the overwhelm when I reached the cathedral, when I reached the square, and I went inside for the Pilgrims Mass, and there is a general blessing and communion. I was raised Catholic, so I received communion in the Catholic Church. And although I followed many Christian churches, non-denominational churches since, to feel the incense, the prayer, the formality, and just people from all over the world, so many languages being spoken that all convene together for a blessing, to light a candle, to make a prayer, to send a blessing and prayer and wish was just beautiful and overwhelming. And being in that square where the common area is between the church and there's a seminary and an old hospital, and seeing people come over and just, you know, from all over and just crashing on the ground with relief was truly an incredible feeling. And there is magic in that area. There really is. It just felt I am on holy ground. And as a result of St. James, and mostly a result of all the people with faith that have come there on that journey. And that brings a lot of healing energy. At least that's what I believe. And so as I've reflected on that Camino, my Camino de Santiago that I did on my Portuguese coastal route, I think of how it was the monotony and the repetitiveness of the daily getting up and walking, being exhausted at the end of the day and hurting, thinking there's no way I can walk another step, and waking up refreshed and recharged and ready to go again, and just doing it again and again and again. There's so much therapy in this, for sure. There's so much therapy, and maybe you're listening and you've been a hiker and you've been on pilgrimages and you know exactly what I mean. For me, this was a first. Even though I have been to the holy sites. I've been to Rome. I've been to the Holy Land many, many times. I have family in Nazareth and Bethlehem, Palestine. And, you know, I've been to Jerusalem many, many times. And so this, you know, and I've been to holy sites like the St. Lourdes in France, the site of St. Bernadette, and Fatima in Portugal. And so while I've done these other pilgrimages, never a walk pilgrimage like this. This was incredible. There's a quote from Ladislas Orsi, who's a Jesuit priest. And he wrote this. He said, "To destroy our taste for the ordinary is to interfere with the foundations of our life." And I love that quote because it's in the ordinary that we can find the magic, the ordinary of our relationship, the ordinary of going for a walk, the ordinary of maybe the monotony of washing our dishes or ironing our clothes. That anyways is to destroy our taste for the ordinary, is to interfere with the foundations of our life. We need much peaceful monotony to enjoy surprising happenings. At the time of monotony, the spirit of the inner man awakes. Not distracted, he can reflect on himself and on the outside world. The quiet rhythm of the ordinary is the best framework for thinking in depth. Great deeds and movements never originated in shallow thoughts. All giant trees have deep roots. So I love this quote. It's from my like my cheat sheet on the Daily Examine, Prayer for Finding God in All Things. It's a Jesuit book based on the Daily Examine of St. Ignatius of Loyola. So I think when I look to say, okay, well, how do I feel so much better and happier and more at home in my body than ever before? Is it this monotony? Is it this accomplishment? Is it receiving at the end, you get these certificates with the official seal of the Santiago, which is nice. It's a nice souvenir to have, and it's a blessing. Also, it is a official blessing because I've completed the pilgrimage. So pilgrims receive this official document. There's they are stamped and signed. So nice to have these mementos for sure. And one other thing that you'll see, if you see someone with a shell on their backpack with a cross on it, that's the symbol of the Camino de Santiago, is the shell. So that's another way to know pilgrim. I want to continue to bring this feeling of celebrating the stage of life that we're in, to celebrate our second 50, to celebrate where we are today in our lives, despite all the chaos that may be happening around us, but to be able to be at peace and at home in our bodies, to feel like our mind and our heart are connected and communicating. And sometimes you have to do some extraordinary things or challenging things in order to feel that. For me, that was the 7 days Camino de Santiago. I think next time I will do at least the 2 weeks, maybe the 4-week or 5-week pilgrimage. We'll see. It's hard to get time like that, right? But where there's a will, there's a way. And when you're called, there's nothing you can do about it. So in the daily videos that I'll share with you at the end of this podcast, it's just a quick 1-minute summary each day, a little observation or finding along the way. And as I listened back to these, as I was working on getting them organized for you guys for the podcast, I thought it was interesting. On day 5, I talk about how, there's often times in our lives where we don't have time just for ourselves, because we're always thinking of, for me, I'm thinking of my daughters. I've been a single mom for over a decade. So thinking of my daughters, helping manage their lives, my work family, my business, my clients, my patients, my research, my books. I mean, all of these demands that pull on me. And to have that, like day 5, I'm like, I'm realizing that I didn't have that during this walk. And to appreciate that experience, to appreciate what I do have, and to appreciate the time when it was just me with me. And I know as moms, it is hard sometimes to get that time where it's just you with you. And I want to let you know that you are very special. You deserve time to even get to know yourself more, to know who you are. And like one Peregrino said, that in our lives, we're constantly refining who we are. So continuing to refine who you are, not the hard work of recreating yourself midlife or redefining or whatever it may be. I mean, that's like a lot of work, but just refining. You are beautifully and wonderfully made. And so I encourage you to take the time to get to know you And that is something that I really treasure as one of the gifts and part of the magic on my Camino de Santiago. So I hope you've enjoyed some of the stories, and you'll take a look at these videos or listen to these videos and join me on YouTube at the Girlfriend Doctor, Dr. Anna Cabeca. And I look forward to sharing more stories and journeys with you as I'm going to start a series about celebrating menopause, celebrating the second 50 of our life. What does that feel like? How do we do it? And I'll be bringing some special conversations and guests to share their journeys too. Thank you for being here in the Girlfriend Doctor community. I hope you enjoy these daily summaries, and let me know what you think. Would you like to join me on a Camino one day? All right, till next time, God bless you. Thank you. This is day one of my journey. So I'm packing my day pack because I do have luggage transfer. And important things that I carried with me are, of course, Mighty Maca, my lip balm kiss, and I carried my medicine pack as well as a few other key things, including a pair of sandals. And I left the town of Oya in the morning and started walking on my journey. Very reflective, considering all the challenges that lay ahead of me, and that this was the first start of my journey. If this is to be a celebration of menopause, how will I embrace it? And what can I look forward to? I decided not to listen to music, but to enjoy the ever amazing scenery here and of recognition of the pilgrims that came before me. The terrain was absolutely gorgeous and stunning, and I took the coastal route, and I stayed on the coastal route till the town of Bayona, which this route from Oya to Compostela de Santiago is 150 kilometers. So today I walked 12 and a half miles, and I continuously have to convert kilometers to mile, but then I celebrated with some pepinos and sole, filleted roasted sole, as well as for dinner, some scallops. I went to the beach here locally in Bayona and soaked my very aching feet. And I must admit, I've enjoyed the day. 17.7 miles on the Camino today, and that is 40,000 steps. So it's been a long way. It can feel really accomplished at the beginning and feel energized, especially after a long climb. Each of the symbols for the Camino give us the distance to the Compostela de Santiago, the church where St. James's bones are reported to be buried in. It's a long hike and there's various terrain. Today was a lot of back roads after leaving the beautiful Bayona town and its antique walls and just amazing coastal views. It was energizing getting started, and as the day went on, the challenges continued to surprise me. I met up with other peregrinos, which are other pilgrims along the road, and talked about menopause, talked about grief and why we were there. I took a break halfway, about 4 hours or 5 hours into walking, and ate at Cafe Alberto. Now they were closed, but they let me in to use the facilities and have some water and coffee. And then the owner himself served me the house specialty, which was the sardines. I just totally enjoyed it. I stopped at several churches along the way and said prayers and contemplated and recognized there are still so many steps ahead of me to go. It is day 3 on my Camino de Santiago, the Portuguese coastal route, and it's been quite a journey. Today, I had many reflections, and typically it's said between day 3 and 5, it's the most challenging time on the Camino. For me, I met both my friend and my foes on the Camino, all within myself. Now, I did meet some people on the trail as I scaled waterfalls and woodlands as well as industrial areas. But the foes, I tell you, their voice, you can't do this. This is too challenging. Your feet are getting blisters. Maybe I should stop more. I mean, I had all these conversations with myself, and something I always say is that you got to knock that nasty bitch off your shoulder. And today, more than ever, I realized that I had to do that as well. This is my peace pilgrimage. And then realizing, does it really matter? Of course, I stopped for some marimaka and extra salts and minerals and electrolytes to make sure that I could withstand the rest of the journey. And today was a 16-mile hike, and it was rigorous. It was scaling up mountains and into really challenging terrain, and my feet were killing me. That's true. So the foe again was like, can you really do this? Well, between Vigo and Redondola and then to Arcade, it was an incredible journey. And I'm here. My feet have survived, although I desperately would like a foot massage. I know that tomorrow brings with it even more challenges. I still have over 80 kilometers to go to reach the Camino de Santiago. But with this journey, besides being physical, it is even more so emotional and spiritual. And it is during this time that I offer lots of prayer for peace within myself, and prayer for peace in general. Today is day 4 of my walk through the Portuguese coastal route on the Camino de Santiago. I was a little off route to begin with, but climbed a hill and found the Camino signs. And it was quite a journey today, and a lot of time, again, for reflection as I walked this walk. I paused to have my breakfast on a hillside overlooking vineyards and farmlands and horses that also walked by while I was there. And during this journey today, I also studied more of the history of Saint James. James was born in Galilee in Palestine, and he came through northern Portugal into Spain and then returned to Judea, where he was killed by King Herod. And then his body, his bones, were transported in a way miraculously back to Spain and through the northern coast of Portugal and into Padrón, which is on my journey. In a couple days I'll reach there, and then buried at what is now the Compostela de Santiago. There, it is mythed that a light shone over his bones and the area was excavated, and the patron saint of Spain, Saint James, was found. The town that I'm in now is Pontevedra. It's gorgeous. My room is simple. I did my laundry and then reflected on, this was a shorter trip, 7 miles, and had a wonderful dinner with fellow pilgrims. What a day. Leaving Pontevedra to hike 14 miles to Caldas de Reis. Today is day 5, so 3 more days till I make it to Compostela de Santiago. And I've gone over 80 kilometers walking on foot so far. And it's cooler this morning. It's cloudy. It's 60 degrees. Feels amazing. And in the forecast, there's rain. But that's okay. So had a lot of time to reflect. You know, on these walks, I don't have this time in my daily life. There's, what am I doing for my family? What do I have to do on my agenda for my clients, for work, etc.? I have to admit, very nice to have this time just for me. And there's the physical challenge of it, certainly. But there's a lot of emotion too. And you see on the side of the road crosses with Mary on one side and the crucifix of Jesus on the other. Today is day 6 of the journey, 150 kilometers. I've gone over 125 kilometers today, and I continue on this path. It's nice to be out early. It's a little cool, but there's no one around. It's so quiet. And here, now we come to the markers for the Santiago route. The beautiful bridge again, the double-sided cross with Jesus on one side and Mary on the other. So today is day 6 of walking, and we have rain. And this means that tomorrow I walk to the Compostela de Santiago. It's really exciting that that's like the culmination of this leg of the journey anyway. It's been beautiful to walk in the Spanish countryside, to see other pilgrims walking their journeys, and it's just one step at a time, like no matter what. It's one step at a time, and there's so many times in life where we do hard things. We do it for ourselves, we do it for others. And leaving remembrances along the way. There's these little gifts on the side of the road that are markers. The pilgrim's journey. Sneakers that no longer serve, scarves, piece of jewelry, stones, all had meaning for someone. Yesterday I walked with a priest, and today a musician and an engineer and people from Spain and Russia and everyone along this journey for their own reasons. And we had fun. We had tequila, and I saw this couple holding hands as they walked and culminated off route the journey. I have to attribute the lack of blisters to using realization that I could use my Julva kiss on my feet in lieu of some other lubricant, but it worked really, really well. And while my feet ache, my heart is full, and this journey has filled my heart. One more day to the Compostela de Santiago. I made it to Compostela, and I should have been elated after 100 miles walking. This is how I really felt. I'm in the square. Very emotional. You can see the church. I was completely overwhelmed and recognized that people have come here from all over the world in all shapes and sizes and health conditions and abilities and limitations. And it took a while for my celebratory side to really overcome the tears. And a lot of tears that day on the journey as I started out first thing in the morning at 5:30 in the rain and walked the whole duration in the rain, but recognizing the journey is as important as the destination, and appreciating every step of this last leg of this Camino de Santiago. And of course I wanted to make the noon mass, so had to rush to get there by noon, and it did not disappoint. The service was incredible, and all the pilgrims gathered in there. This is the Buddha Fera, which is incense that is part of the special ceremony. and that just made it more special. I lit a lot of candles, a lot of people I've lost and loved in my life, and also lighting candles for peace and for Palestine and for peace in the world. And part of the pilgrim's journey is to visit the crypt, the bones of St. James. So I did that as well. And the markers on the trip, the signs, arrows, directions. It's nice to have directions where you need to go next. Of course, I appreciated all the food. And I also appreciate that people have different starting points to this one destination. It's really symbolic of life. I share my steps as I've never walked that much, and I'd love to share more about the next day.